Oh, so you're saying it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel? That is ridiculous. But if you're trying to get people to defend, oh, you're saying it's anti-Semitic to say f the Jews and throw stuff at them in public? It's like, well, that kind of is. And it actually gives them, the political enemy, ammunition to go after us. Our message is not f anybody. Our message is we love America. We love Americans. Our message is positive, not negative.
Nick Fuentes just revealed the right and the wrong way to attack Zionists and Zionism in America, the control of the Israel lobby over our government. And in this clip, he cites a recent example in the news that shows how not to attack Zionists. And I dare say, I think he gets it exactly right. And this will confuse and maybe surprise many of his critics. So let's watch. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Dave Portnoy's crew caught this on camera. They were in the middle of a pizza review, so they were already recording. They caught this, they posted it, and they said, can somebody identify the guy that said this? And the guy got picked up. This is from the local press. It's a 20-year-old student. It said Starkville police arrested a 20-year-old Mississippi State University student on a misdemeanor charge of disturbing the peace after anti-Semitic comments directed toward Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy could be heard in a video on Friday. In a video posted on X, someone could be heard saying, F the Jews, F you, Dave Portnoy. The student was arrested and released on a $2,500 bond. He withdrew from MSU on the afternoon of November 10th, according to a university spokesperson. So that was earlier today. According to the incident report, the police department was made aware of that video circulating online. The police department said in a statement, quote, every person has the right to feel safe and respected in our community. Offensive words alone are protected, but when behavior disrupts a public event or risks violence, the police department will take steps to help maintain safety and security. And the reason I wanted to talk about this tonight is because this kind of thing is really a problem. And before anybody says, I got the call or, somebody put me up to this, we do have to be very careful here. First of all, and I'm not saying this to pander to Jews, I'm not saying this to pander to Israel or to liberals or anything. There is a fine line here. There is a fine line between when we are talking about our politics and, of course, the political reality is this country is controlled by a Jewish oligarchy. That's a fact. It is a fact that when you look at the biggest individual donors to the presidential campaigns, probably more than half of them are Jewish. I haven't looked at the list of names. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Well, that's not the only criteria. It sure does seem like a Zionist Christian oligarchy too, right? That's complicit in this scheme. That is true. The Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby, has monumental pull at our political system. We see it play out in our foreign policy, in our domestic policy, conflating, hate speech with criticism of Israel and rewriting state codes to support that. The Israel first mentality has even gone deep enough to affect our natural disaster relief. That story was covered a few months ago, how, if you're part of an organization critical of Israel, you might not get disaster relief from the United States. But at the same time, it certainly is a Christian Zionist oligarchy, overwhelmingly so, that's involved too. Just want to add that.
But when you're looking at Miriam Adelson, when you're looking at Michael Bloomberg, when you're looking at the George Soros, these are the types of people that are pouring money into the campaigns, the super PACs, get out the vote. When you're looking at media, the Ivy League universities, it's no secret that we have a Jewish oligarchy filled with Jewish billionaires, and they frequently and often put Israel and the Jewish nation ahead of America. It's a big problem.
Yeah, there's no disputing that, but at the same time, let's say a guy was pissed off at his wife and he hired a hitman, and the hitman kills that wife. We would not say that's the fault of just the guy who paid that hitman. We'd say, yeah, the hitman's still a murderer. So I'm with Nick on one of the focal points and the roots of this problem is this lobby, but it's also complicit people that aren't Jewish that are totally on board with these kinds of schemes, this kind of foreign policy, and this kind of robbery of our sovereignty in America. It's not exclusively Jewish. I don't think he would say that either, but when you portray it just as like a Jewish oligarchy, I think that actually doesn't place the responsibility completely where it lies.
Because this is nothing other than what you could accurately describe as just verbal abuse. Going up to somebody and saying, fuck that person in public and saying, fuck the Jews and fuck you, that actually doesn't change anything. It's rude. It is disorderly. This is not how we're supposed to behave. I don't think that we can hold a society together if this is what it's going to turn into. And that's not the type of society that I want to live in. I don't want to actually live in a society where people who are Jewish or happen to be Jewish are getting punched or beat up, and quite frankly, even heckled for that matter. People should, generally speaking, and I say this as a content creator also, but also just in general, people should be able to go and live their private lives without being verbally or physically assaulted. And the moment that you start to say that you forfeit that privilege because of your politics, we're living in open warfare.
Totally agree with him on this. And again, I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear him saying this, but I think this is the perfect thing to say, that that's exactly true. What we think about our politics and the remedies to political situations we think are backwards, including the Israel lobby, isn't to initiate violence or, verbal assaults on Jewish people. It's just so absurd. That's what we would never find forgiving about others. And it's just weaponized by enemies of, critics of Israel against us. And it's backward morally beyond being a tool that they use to propagandize this, mass hysteria that anti-Semitism is somehow, the most dangerous force in America today, despite the fact it isn't. That's what they use as propaganda to increase the aid sent to Israel, to increase our Israel first foreign policy. So I think Nick is 100% right on this.
And it cuts both ways. And I don't think that's any type of civilized way to live. That people should be getting screamed at or heckled or punched or beat up. I do actually believe in civility. And I think that's what America's about. I think that's Christian. And so I would caution everybody, because don't get me wrong, I don't like Dave Portnoy. I think he's a poser. I think he's an asshole. I think he's a traitor. But if I saw him in the street, I wouldn't run up on him and yell, fuck you. Honestly, I wouldn't confront him at all. And if I did, I would be polite.
Amen. I couldn't agree with Nick more on this. And this happened to Dave during a pizza review. By the way, I imagine he's like, one bite, everybody knows the rules. Frankie, take a look at this. Look at this pizza. Oh, look at the undercarriage. And then he's like, hearing that from someone, I doubt that pizza cracks an 8, by the way. How could that pizza ever crack above an 8 at this point? By the way, I guess it's a tangent. But I mean, Nick is right about this, man. This isn't the way to treat others. It's not right to heckle people. It's not right, even legally, to, assault them or certainly initiate violence on them. Violence is only authoritative and legitimate in my mind when it's self-defense, when it's a retort of violence that's already been initiated on you. This is just wrong to do to people.
I don't think that's the right thing to do. I don't think that's the right way to conduct ourselves, and I can't approve of it. And I think that's bad in principle, but I'll tell you something else. And this is what I was maybe alluding to earlier when I say it goes further than this. Maybe you're unconvinced. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're pissed off. You say, well, who cares? Somebody said F you. They need to get the kind of heckler's veto. They need to get the mob veto over their behavior. If you're unconvinced, maybe you think this kind of thing is okay and I can't convince you otherwise. Let me tell you where else this is going. You start to go and harass people in the street like this, and it actually gives them, the political enemy, ammunition to go after us.
Yes, exactly.
Because you know what? We're right about what we're saying. We are right. If Jewish people like Larry Ellison are buying TikTok so that they can ban criticism of Israel, that's a huge problem. Like, we're right. There's a perfect example of organized Jewish influence that everybody can recognize as a conflict of interest. It is averse or adverse, better said, it's adverse to a culture of free speech. And this is an instance of pro-Israel Jewish lobbying and regulatory institutional capture of private public institutions. It's a problem. And everybody would be on our side. Everybody, by the way, this is factual. It happened in reality. Everybody can get behind this, that's a problem. But the moment that people start to go out there and say the message is F the Jews, and we're going to heckle and attack people in real life, then you lose everybody.
This is exactly how the propaganda works against critics of Israel. What he's saying here and laying out is a reality. This is a tool of the Zionists. They actually love actual Jew hatred and anti-Semitism like this because it's just weaponized against critics of Israel that are correct, that have already won the argument, that already are in the place of true America first or America only patriots. They can get denigrated and lose the argument because of this kind of propaganda. And if it has power, it's fueled by circumstances like this that they can point to. It just becomes part of, the propaganda repertoire of Zionism, of the Israel lobby. Max Blumenthal talks about this a lot, actually. And I think Nick is 100% on point here.
Because nobody supports that. The moment that you start to cross that line, that very fine line, and I don't think it's that fine, but it's a hard line. The moment that you cross that line, you lose everybody. You tell people we don't want a genocide in Gaza, they're with you. You tell people we don't want AIPAC in Congress, they're with you. You tell people that we want to be able to criticize Israel on social media, they're with you. We don't want Jewish billionaires buying TikTok in collusion with the government to censor speech, they're with you. But the second that some punk, some asshole goes out there and starts yelling, hey, F the Jews, and throwing stuff at people because they think it's funny, then you lose everybody.
He is so right, man. This is so poetically said, too. That's exactly right. So even if you've already won the argument in terms of reason and morality and where American sentiment is, you can ultimately lose it politically by aiding the enemy's propaganda through this madness, through actual, assaults of Jewish people like this. He's so totally correct about this, and I think it behooves people that are critical of Nick to actually explore his position on this. He's not the monster, the vile monster a lot of people claim about this when he's out here saying, I want nothing to do with violence against Jews. It only helps the Zionists. And I can't see any way to poke a hole in that argument. I honestly just can't.
And everybody says, yeah, that's not cool, actually. That is actually a good example of so-called anti-Semitism. If you're attacking someone in public for being Jewish, you kind of lose that card.
Yeah.
And by that card, I mean, so you're saying it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel? That is ridiculous. But if you're trying to get people to defend, you're saying it's anti-Semitic to say fuck the Jews and throw stuff at them in public? It's like, well, that kind of is. That right. Is prejudice. That is actually not cool. That's immoral. And everybody's going to say, yeah, no, we're not with you on that. And not only are you going to lose popular support, but you're going to taint the legitimacy of the rest of the arguments. And what's more, that just goes in the folder for the ADL. When the ADL goes to Congress and says there's been 50,000 anti-Semitic incidents this year, that's a real one that they can use, and they will use it. They will browbeat you forever, and they will use that to bolster censorship. They will use that to bolster legislation. They will use that to bolster all kinds of things.
It's absolutely correct. Don't help the enemies by taking your critique of Israel to a violent level. It's never conducive to us all. If you really want to undermine the Israel lobby, the influence that the Israel lobby has on our foreign policy, the schemes that are being unleashed to try to take over social media giants and censor our speech on behalf of this foreign rogue regime committing a genocide, if you want all of those things to be undermined, you cannot, endorse violence. And this is one of the best parts of Nick Fuentes, and I've had disputes with him. My last video was actually, pretty argumentative with some of the points he made. It was in alignment with some others. But this is a part of his philosophy I don't think can be ignored. People ignore this to their peril. And it's kind of the same, sentiments that he had following immediately the Charlie Kirk murder. He said, hey, me and Charlie were enemies politically. But there's no way I ever would endorse violence, toward others like that. And I wouldn't endorse that even to people that are cheering for this death, that this assassination cost. We shouldn't engage in violence toward those people, even though he was my arch enemy. Because you know what? I was happy that he wore Christianity on his sleeve when he went to these college events. And I think it's really important to know that that's part of Nick too. It's not just part of the monstrous, things people bring up from time to time about Nick. This is part of his core, and I think it's a very moral standpoint.
So we need to be very clear. We are not about that. If you're doing that, you are not with us. So this kid, this 20-year-old, do I think he should be charged? I don't know. I don't think that's really a crime, what he did. I generally consider that to be protected by free speech. And should he be thrown out of the university? He's 20 years old. 20-year-olds do stupid stuff. I don't know that his future should be ruined for that. But you're not helping us. I don't know the name of the guy that did this, but whoever did this, you are not helping us. You are hurting us. And if you are hurting us, if you are an obstacle to our objectives, if you're making us look bad, we want nothing to do with you.
Right on. No violence. Actually speak the truth, be reasonable, take on the arguments and defeat them. The things that the Zionists aren't doing to people like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. They're just yelling anti-Semitism and blood libel. Actually take on their arguments. Let's avoid the stupidity that is in violence that, again, just gives ammunition to the enemy in trying to undermine critics of Israel. They can just say, hey, look at what these guys do. And they'll associate you, the person that didn't engage in violence, but did have good arguments about this issue and against the Israel lobby, they'll associate you with the perpetrators of violence. Absolutely correct.
It's one thing if you get canceled unfairly. It's one thing if you're helping us. We will circle the wagons. We will help you. But if you, because of your emotions, because of your impulsivity, because of your lack of prudence and temperance, if you go and do stupid stuff like this, you're helping the enemy, you're doing something indefensible, we cannot help you. We cannot defend that. And everybody needs to be absolutely crystal clear on this, because mark my words, this kind of shit, it will be used against us. And like I said, I don't support it in principle. I don't support it by itself. I'm not just saying, oh, we can't do that because it'll make us look bad. No, this is asshole behavior. And people should, I've never been an advocate for harassing people in public like that.
Yeah, we should have the same viewpoint about this happening that we do if a Zionist did this. If an outright Zionist, maybe a really hardcore one, maybe a prominent one, maybe not, but it was just very much true and documented that that was a Zionist, committing violence against someone that was a critic of Israel. Well, if you take issue with that, you also have to take issue with this, because it's not about what they say. It's about the initiation of violence on others. It's wrong no matter who it is, no matter for what reason, except for self-defense. And when it's in self-defense, by the way, it has to be proportional. You can't kill a guy for, pinching you in the side. You can't. You can't under any legal code or justification imaginable.
That's not cool, okay? And we do need to draw some boundaries on that. I saw Ian Carroll say something similar, and I didn't watch the whole video, but a lot of people gave him a hard time. I think his heart's in the right place, and he's totally correct. We do have to draw a hard boundary on that. I'm in favor of telling the truth. I'm in favor of infiltrating the institutions. I'm in favor of using political speech, using the political system. I'm in favor of self-defense, actually. But I'm not in favor of this kind of stuff where you go and make an asshole out of yourself in public, harassing people, kids, families, people in public throwing stuff at them. That's not cool. And it's a slippery slope. That's not a game you want to play, not a path you want to go down. You can't defend it. And again, it's always used as ammunition. And rightfully so. If Mark Levin was throwing stuff at white people in public, we would be up in arms too, and we'd be justified. Yeah. So, we have to call that out and say that's not okay. You can disagree with Dave Portnoy, and you could even go up and say, you know what, Dave Portnoy, I think you're a real asshole. I think you're wrong to be pro-abortion. I think you're wrong to be pro-Israel. But you can't be throwing stuff at him, and you can't say fuck the Jews. Our message is not fuck anybody. Our message is we love America. We love Americans. Our message is positive, not negative. We need to be very clear about this.
Right on. I'm totally with Nick on this one, like 100%, almost down the line in this video, completely agree with him. And again, I think a lot of Nick's critics who portray him as, the most vile monster since Stalin and Hitler should watch this clip. I think this is a really valuable one for them to watch in particular. And actually, in particular, some people that have maybe heard a thing or two about Nick and what he said and how monstrous his viewpoints are by the powers that be, they should look what he has to say about this man, because no one, I think makes this point better than him, actually. Like, this was so well laid out and portrayed, and who can be against this? Who in our camp that actually does push back against the Zionist lobby, that does have a problem with how that's affected us? A curtailment of our civil liberties and our foreign policy, which always seems to be Israel first. Who could take issue with that? I don't think anyone of moral fiber could take issue with that. And I think, again, it would surprise a lot of his critics. So if you're going to tell me that this kid, and I'm sorry to say kid, I'm 42, he's 27, I'm not trying to big brother this guy. That's how us, Gen Xers, I guess I'm on the verge of Gen X and millennial, talk about people that are younger than us. But if you're going to say that this guy is the most heinous and irredeemable and without the potential of any kind of redemption arc for this guy, he's just totally beyond the pale, I just don't see it, especially when seeing clips like this. And I've had my disagreements with him. I disagreed with them quite profusely in my previous video released earlier today, or it'll be tomorrow. And, what can I say? But he's right. Violence does nothing more than to tarnish this anti-Zionist movement that's being constructed. It's a unique thing. It's breaking the left-right paradigm to some extent. Are we going to squander that by, supporting this kind of stuff? We can't. And I'm not saying it's even that commonplace, because I don't believe it's that commonplace. I think, you hear these screeds and, Jew hatred on social media. It's usually by people with anonymous accounts and things like that. Very rarely do people want to tie their actual names to this kind of stuff, and they don't have political power or prestige almost anywhere. And that alone, that fact is telling that it probably isn't as pervasive, and it certainly isn't as big of, a catastrophic societal problem as they like to portray in the legacy media. But at the same time, we can't defend, the behavior that people engage in when you resort to violence. It tarnishes the rest of us. It gives our enemies like the ADL ammo to use against us that do have a problem with this Israel first mentality. Again, we've ruptured the left-right, dichotomy a little bit with this, with distant leftists and distant rightists uniting on this. What is more America first than opposing the influence of this foreign regime on much of our policy, foreign and domestic? I don't know what it is. I think Nick's right on this, basically down the line. But what do you think? Do you think he's right? Do you think people would be surprised to hear him talk about this? We shouldn't be surprised as dissidents that they don't run with this clip, right? But wouldn't it behoove some people to watch this? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please consider becoming a YouTube member by clicking the join button below. If you do that, you can help support my channel, and in return for that, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And If you would like a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It'll shoot you off to a site, plug in your email, I'll send that directly to you, absolutely free, no obligation. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.